In today's video, I'll talk about a couple of strategies that used to work 5 or more years ago, but no longer cut it. And the primary reason why I'm doing this video is because I see this advice, the way that the internet works is on search engine optimization. That is, the older the article, the higher the potential that it makes the cut. So I thought I'd help you with removing a possible disambiguation. The first one is faking the weakness question. So a couple of years ago, it was perfectly good advice for someone to tell you that you should basically turn a positive into a negative, such as "I work so hard," as being your weakness. Nowadays, in my opinion, interviewers have got so much better with these things, and the expectations are so different that turning a positive into a negative, it's a terrible idea in my opinion. The second item I want to touch upon here is faking the failure story. So again, it's all about the expectations. If 5 or more years ago you could get away with a failure story that was not a proper failure, like you missed an internal deadline that had no consequences, nowadays employers are more and more looking to find out whether this was a proper weakness, and even more interestingly, what you learned from these things. Was this a proper learning experience, right? So the second one was faking the failure story. Number 3, literally selling yourself. The way people used to sell stuff in the past is so different from the way people sell stuff today. For instance, you could say 5 years ago that I'm a highly accomplished and successful individual when answering to tell me about yourself, and literally focusing on your success directly. A direct sales approach if you want. Whereas nowadays, a better approach would be to emphasize hard work over success, which I just made a video about if you want to see a full example. So it's more, the world has changing to a more consultative sales process. And this is what you must be really aware, especially as a job interview candidate, who you do have to market yourself, but how you market, you have to be with the latest trends. Number 4, assuming that the job description has everything you'll ever need in it and literally sticking to the content of that job description. Now, I want to give a little bit of insight here as how the job description actually evolved over time. In the beginnings, yes, it might have been a document crafted by HR for the purpose of giving the candidate information. But nowadays that you have software that automatically can generate a template for a software development engineer if you want, it has become more and more a marketing manifesto, because they're looking what works for them, what sells in terms of what brings in candidates for jobs interviews in those job descriptions. So I believe that you should not rely all that much to the information that presented in the job description. You should take it, of course, seriously, but don't think that's everything they're looking for. And especially they have those 3 core competencies that will be very important for the job interview, but they will never show up in documents such as the job description. So I guess the main takeaway here is to lower your expectations when it comes to the accuracy of this job description. Number 5, employers will primarily ask you most commonly asked questions that I published in my list. While this is true, in many cases, people are reporting that, hey, then they ask me 90% of your top 23 or 35 most commonly asked questions in Amazon. But I can tell you from experience, there are many recruiters working for these companies who've actually been my clients and now they're there, or many recruiters who follow these, especially because, or many interviewers, I should say, that follow these channels that publish the more commonly asked questions and understand the need to evolve. So don't expect a job interview to be dominated by most commonly asked questions in job interviews, because it is also evolved. And expect peculiar questions, expect the unknown, because that's where the best behavioral interviews are. And number 6 here is insider information. Used to make a huge difference in these jobs interviews. Like I know for Amazon, for instance, you had to pay good money only 3 or 4 years ago for someone to explain to you those leadership principles and to find information like interview questions on those leadership principles. But luckily these things evolved. So now you're only clicks away from finding out such information. And from experience, especially from my coaching experience, even if your spouse works at the company that you're applying for, and even if they will tell you a lot more information about what type of questions you could expect during the job interview, it doesn't make all that much difference, to be honest with you. So insider information is far less relevant in today's interviews than it used to in the past. And that's primarily because the expectations are very clear nowadays. And the process is so transparent. Like, there are thousands of people, tens of thousands of people who report with feedback about how those interviews actually went. And employers have actually shifted their strategy from not telling you anything about the upcoming interview to actually trying to give you as much insight as they feel comfortable when it comes to the structure of the interview, when it comes to the expectations. And people are more open-minded nowadays. So I would advise you here to invest your time wisely into finding, insider information about the company that you're applying for. So these were the 6 items that I believe that you should be well aware of on how they evolved over time. And of course, in order for you to correctly prepare and correctly understand the expectations for your upcoming job interview. Hopefully you found this useful, and thank you very much for watching.